All right, this will be the last lecture then. If you look over here, this is where we are. So today we took the written test already, and we'll have the lecture on Chapter 8 plus the test review. Tomorrow we'll go through some examples, plus I'm supposed to have one-on-one meetings with each one of you. At those meetings, I'm going to give you 2 pieces of paper. One piece of paper will be your attendance for this semester, and the other one will be all your grades as they are in the book right now. All right. We'll have the written test then on Thursday. I'm going to leave this up to you, and I'm going to ask right now. We've got 8 of you here, so hopefully it won't be 4 to 4. Would you rather have the hands-on test at the end of this week? Because then that's 2 hands-on tests in 1 week. And then have all next week be for the portfolio, or have the hands-on test next Monday and have Friday just be a work day? You all look like you're ready to go home already. So, all right, how many people would rather have just have the test Friday and get it over with? That's 1, 2, 3. Of course, that's 4. So, how many people want to have it Monday? All right, we'll have it Friday then. That's fine. That's not a problem. All right, so that'll be hands-on. So then Monday will just be a portfolio day. So all next week then will be portfolio. Notice if you look in purple here, I changed, so I don't care what it says in the syllabus, I made all of the work for Chapter 7 and 8 not due until next Wednesday. So if you need, a little more time to work on them, that's fine. Ideally, you'll have all that stuff turned in by Wednesday. That'll give you 3 straight days to work on the portfolio. The portfolios are due by the end of class on Monday, the 19th. That's the last day of class. Somebody asked, again, if you didn't hear, you come back on the 9th. All right, so you've got a pretty nice break. Me, not so much. All right. I sent you an email today, and it's got this stuff in it. You don't have to bring it up or anything, but for lack of better words, what I did was I went out and I gave you all the Hunlock for strings, for arrays, and for JSON. And for Mozilla Developer Network, I gave you strings and arrays and JSON, plus that regular expressions.info that I've shown you before. And I just went right to the tools and languages, and I went to the JavaScript page. All right? All right. I have not written it yet, but my guess is that when you take the last test in here, many of you may finish it very fast. All right? Literally, like within an hour or 2. All right? So the idea is not to give you one last test and say, hey, how much stuff can I jam down your throats on that last day? I'm not going to do that. All right, so I'm on page 533, Chapter 8, Manipulating Data in Strings and Arrays. As you can see here, we want to find out all the properties and methods of the string object, all the properties and methods of the array object, talk about regular expressions, even though I already have, and finally talk about JSON, which is JavaScript object notation. All right, you won't have any JSON on your test. The author only gives it the last 3 or 4 pages in the book, or in the chapter rather. So I'm not going to spend much time on it either. You may or may not remember we went over strings in an earlier chapter. We went over arrays in an earlier chapter. But this chapter is designed to go over these in more depth and breadth of coverage. All right. So hopefully you remember this, the fact that you can put a string in either single quotes or double quotes. It doesn't matter. They show you that on page 534, but you can't mix. So in other words, you can't start with a single, end with a double, or vice versa. This question right here, this is on your test. All right, don't worry, because we'll write it down in just a couple minutes when we go over the test review. But you are asked what parsing is. As it says, it's extracting characters or substrings from a larger string. All right, so it's finding something in something else. All right, so when you parse, you're looking through something big for something smaller. And you do this kind of stuff all the time. For instance, let's just assume, I don't do this, but let's assume that when it's your next written test, what I do is I don't have them in any order, I don't hand them out to you. I just put them up here and say, take the test with your name on them, with your name on it. Then you're parsing through that. Does that make sense? All right, that's really all there is to it. All right, JavaScript has a string class. Again, as I already mentioned, if I go over here, this is their strings reference. If you look, this is on Hunlock. And if you look right here, you'll notice that virtually all of the different things you can do with strings are listed along the sides. Plus, you're given a lot of examples. If you don't like to use the Hunlock, you can go to W3 Schools. There are other ones too that you can go to. All right, so the chapter talks about quite a few of these. What you do in this chapter, this shouldn't be a stretch for any of you because this is very similar to some of the stuff we've done in earlier chapters. You work on this Golden Rocks National Park, and the idea is that you want to confirm that any field in here that is required, there's something put into it. So as you can see, what we do is we extract out of this the username, the email address, and your preferred lodgings from whatever you choose in here. All right, so that's what you're basically doing throughout the entire chapter. All right, and you want to make sure, for example, and you know this stuff already, that if you put in a password and you've got a confirmed password, that they're the same thing. All right, and it's all different things like that that you do throughout this. In fact, this is a very long slide here. It's all of page 536 in the book that shows you this. Now, they mentioned much of the code for the page has already been created. Your job is to use the properties and methods of the string class, the regex, which stands for regular expression class, the array class, and at the end you do a little bit with JSON, all right, to check and manipulate the values that are entered by the users. All right, so that gets us down to the bottom of page 537 where we start talking about strings in a little bit more depth and breadth of coverage. Now, I'm going to take for granted that you all knew this already. If for some reason I take my, I decide I want to use single quotes here for my string delimiters, and I want to put a single quote within a pair of single quotes, I can do it as long as I put a backslash before it. And that would work the same way if it was a double quote. Again, that's an escape sequence. No, it's not on the test, I don't believe, but you should know that by now. That indeed you can do that if you want to do that. And if you said, wouldn't it be much easier to just put a double quote here and a double quote here? I would say yes. But just to show that you don't have to do it that way, that's what they're showing in here. All right. Now, they talk a little bit in here, too. You may or may not be aware of this. If you don't want to use ampersand copy, for example, you could use ampersand #169. Why would you want to do that? Because for all of those character entities, you know, like ampersand copy, if you want to put in a copyright symbol, ampersand GT, if you want to put in a greater than sign, ampersand LT, if you want to put in a less than sign, etc. All those, they all have numerical coefficients too. All right, most people don't use them because it's hard to remember what the numbers are, but you can. If you want more on that, you can just go and you can just Google HTML character entities. All right. Not sure if this is on the test or not. Again, we'll see it in just a minute. But you should know what a static method is. You should know that by now. And we've looked at this. In fact, you had this, I think, in the last chapter. Or else it's in this one. Math.floor. All right? And that grabs whatever number you're working with. So if you've got a number that's negative 31.6, it bumps it down to the next lowest number, which would be negative 32. If you've got 31.6, it bumps it down to the next lowest number, which would be 31. Does that make sense to everyone? All right. The point is, you can call the floor function without having to create an object. Math is the name of a class. So you can say the name of the class dot something. When you could say the name of the class dot the name of the method, that means that that class is what's called a static class. Static means you don't have to create an object of that type. That's what static is. All right. These are on the test here. If you want to convert something to all lowercase, you use the to lowercase method. Notice again, that's case, no pun intended, that's case sensitive. So the L in lower, the C in case have to be in uppercase. In the same way, if you want to put something in all uppercase, to uppercase, all right? And they show how you can use it right here. So this is an example. If you had NOAA all in lowercase letters and you assign that to the variable called agency and you set something equal to agency.to uppercase, it would now look like this. I mean, you're all smart enough, you realize that, but again, it is on the test, so you should know what the to lowercase is and what the to uppercase is. Now, the other reason that that's important is in your examples here on 539 and on 540, they take the email and they put it all to lowercase. All right. Some people, when you see this, either on a URL or on an email, sometimes people will have uppercase letters in there. All right, but most of the time it's all in lowercase. Okay, even if it shows online as it being in uppercase. All right, if you want to count the number of characters that are in a string, this is called a property right here. Can somebody tell me, and it's actually a real simple question, that's a property and not a method. If it was a method, what would it need on there that it doesn't have? What do you put in each method that you create? What do you put on the end of the method? Parentheses. This does not have parens, so it's a property and not a method. If they had paren there, then length would be a method. And it gets really confusing, and it'll get confusing in the last semester because Java allows you to use length as either a property or a method. So that can get a little bit confusing. So if I want to count the number of characters in Kingdom of Monaco, and it counts everything, including any blanks. And even though it starts at 0, so 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, etc., and it ends at 18, there still are 18 characters in there. All right, and if you do have any escape sequences like \n, \t, etc., it counts those as a single character. All right, there's a lot of charts in this chapter. The first one that's shown here is on pages 540, well, I guess it's on page 541. The charat, I've already shown you the charat, if you remember that. We used that in an earlier test, and we used that in some earlier assignments where you would ask a person if they wanted to do something again, and they were supposed to put in Y or N for yes or no. But then regardless of what they put in, we only grabbed that first character and then we uppercased it. So you've seen this already. All right. If you don't want to use the regular character char codat, that will use the Unicode coefficient of the character. If you go, I don't know what that means, you'll probably never need to use it. All right. Ones that you'll actually need to use quite a bit are index of and last index of, because those are used with what are referred to as substrings. A substring is a string within a string. All right. So let's suppose, as an example, I wanted to go through, just some document. Let's say, I wanted to go through Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. All right, when he freed the slaves, and I wanted to see how many times he had in there the word slave. All right. That would be an example of me using a substring. I'm looking for a string within a string. All right. It can be as simple as maybe I want to look through everybody who's in here. All right. And we have a Williams and we have a Wilson. So let's say I wanted to look through all the last names for WIL. All right, I could do that. Okay. And if I'm looking in a forward direction, I use index of. If I want to do it in a backward direction, I can use last index of. Really, index of will find the first one. All right. And these are ones, hopefully you used one of those when you took the test yesterday. All right. That is a very simple way of doing matching of a regular expression. So remember, you were supposed to match the social security number for a format of number, dash, number, dash, number. You could have done that with a match or with a search. All right. Slice allows you to literally grab something. So if I wanted to grab, the first, let's suppose in here that what I did was I decided I was going to make a weird password for you. And what I was going to do is would be to take the first 3 characters of your first name, the last 3 characters of your last name, and maybe the middle 3 characters of your rank and ID number. Okay? I could do that with the slice. All right, I could also do it with the substring. Now they show an example of this in here and how you go and you measure things, etc. It's actually pretty good. This is figure 8.5 that's on page 544 because it shows you how all these things are used. All right, so notice char at 5, there's 0, there's 1, there's 2, there's 3, there's 4, there's 5. That's why you get the @ sign. So if we wanted the character code, the Unicode character code for an @ sign is 40. The index of com is 14. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it says that the word com starts at the 15th character, which is character 14. All right. Then it says, where do we find our last E in here? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That E in location 12th, which is the 13th character, is this. All right. Where do we find the @ sign? It's at 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. And here they're showing 2 different ways that we could pluck the word example out. All right. You may want to bookmark this page, dog-ear it, put a, whatever, because this might be something that you can use on your last test. All right. All right, so they talk in a little bit more depth about the search and the index of. We've already gone over them. So hopefully at least everybody understands or has at least a minimal understanding of what they are. Not this language, and you may not care about this, but for example, PHP, if you look through the PHP functions, I could even show you this. Like I said, you may not care, but just to show you. So if I go out to php.net, and I start looking at string functions, and I look in here, of course it wouldn't show me the ones I wanted. Oh, they changed it. Okay, I guess they've changed it. What this used to say, literally, the names that they would use in PHP were needle and haystack. You ever hear that saying? Searching for a needle in a haystack? That's the way a lot of books equate doing different types of string and substring operations. That's what you're looking for. So the haystack would be maybe a list of names. The needle would be a certain name that you're looking for in that list of names. All right? And it can be anything you wanted or needed to be. They talk about the differences between slice and substring. They work the same way. It's just that the syntax of them is different. That's all. Now you can actually do some very simplistic little search and replace using JavaScript. All right. I was reading an article the other day where I get this thing sent to me a couple times a week from codeproject.com, and they had an entire text editor that was written in JavaScript. All right, you might say, well, why would you want to do that? You might never want to use it, but the idea is to see if you could build one, all right, to use a lot of the different skills, ideally, that you've acquired. All right, years ago, I took a compiler class. We had to build a compiler, all right? We were never going to use that compiler, but the idea was, could you build it? All right, same kind of thing in here. Notice that replace, it's the name of the string you're using, .replace, whatever you're looking for, what you want to replace it with, and it is case sensitive. So they're replacing here, for example, president with vice.president. All right. You can combine different things using concat. So if you look up on the screen here, you've got a variable called pen name, and that's Dr. Seuss, and then they say pen name.concat. Now, would you have to do that? No. You never have to use concat, because we could have said here var bio equals pen name plus, and then we could have just added that. But they're showing you there is another way of doing it. All right? Most languages allow you to use both a plus sign for string concatenation and concat or something similar to it. But when we talk a year from now, when we're talking about databases, they don't let you use the plus sign like that. You have to use the concat most of the time. So it just depends on what type of software you're working with. All right. They also, and again, this stuff may or may not sound important to you. No, it won't be on the test, but you should at least be aware of something like this, locale compare. If you ever go to work for a company and you're doing web work, and you're doing work that is going to depend on, basically if your site is going to be used all over the world, all right? You can use locale compare for times. You could use it for types of currency, etc. Because the way that we do currency here and the way we do the currency is done in France is different, for example. There's a big time difference probably between here and France, as an example. All right, you can use the locale compare to do a lot of those different kinds of comparisons. Again, throughout this entire chapter, you're doing this Golden Rocks National Park where you're going through all of these. All right. Now, by the time you finish this chapter, you should know how to do this. But we've looked at this already. This isn't a big thing to any one of you. You should all know how to compare two strings. Okay? It's not difficult to do. You've got a value in the first string, you've got a value in the second string, and probably I'd use the triple equal sign. All right. Then jumping up to 553, now they start talking about regular expressions. And again, it's not that this is a big thing, but I do want you to see this. They say right here, working with regular expressions. In many programming languages, they're just referred to like that, regex. So anytime you see regex, they're talking about regular expressions, just so you know that. All right. JavaScript is pretty much on par with just about any other language you work with as far as how they handle regular expressions. All right. And again, we've done some of this stuff already. You've already gone in and you've set up regular expressions for phone numbers. You've set up regular expressions for emails. You've set up regular expressions for social security numbers, etc. Now, I showed you this before, but if you're ever working with this, be it on a test or on an assignment, you might want to go out to HTML5 pattern.com. No, I didn't give you that one, but if you remember, and it looks real simple, but this is the one that if I want to sit there and say, okay, postal codes, which is a zip code, there's the American zip code right there, which says 5 digits or 5 digits, a hyphen, 4 digits. All right, and it's, again, HTML5 pattern.com. Should have added that one. I didn't. Sorry. So that's it right there. Just all you need is html5pattern.com. All right. But it's one you may want to consider bookmarking on your system. All right. Now, when you look at this stuff, in fact, really in this chapter, if you start to read it, it starts to show you some of the problems that people have with regular expressions. And what I mean by that is there's no exact standard to the way people write regular expressions. All right. Now, you may or may not remember this, but let's grab that regular expression that we just looked at for postal codes. All right. So I can set up a regular expression. For example, I can come in here. I'm just grabbing this right out of HTML5 pattern. So I can come in here and say var zip equal, and I can put that in. All right. Most of the time when you see that put in, it won't look like this. It'll look like this. Single quote slash this caret $sign slash dom, like this. Most of the time it'll look like this. You want to take the regular expression and put it in single quotes. You want to put these in as delimiters. And here's a question that's on the test. All right? You don't have to use forward slashes. Most people do, but you can use any character. So for instance, would you all agree I have no other than this, I have no dollars? I wouldn't need a dollar sign. For some reason, if I wanted to, I could actually use a comma here and here. I don't know why I would do that, but you can use any delimiter that's not in here. People just naturally gravitate towards a forward slash. Don't ever use a backslash in there because remember, that's the escape character. All right? So this would say, again, starts with which is the caret, ends with which is the $sign. So the backslash D, I think that's a meta character, that says 5 digits, all right? And this within the parentheses means this is optional. So I can have 5 digits, or I can have 5 digits, a hyphen, and 4 digits. All right, that has to start making some sense to you. All right? And again, much of the next pages, starting on 553, are just filled with examples of this. Okay. All right. Question?
Yeah. So with that other expression, are you able to use a, I don't know exactly what it's called, but like a straight up line instead of the parentheses for as in like or is that?
Oh, could you do it that way? See, the thing is, if I put this here, oops, not there. If I put that there, that would mean 5 digits or 4 digits.
Okay.
So I have to list it again. Okay. So I could do it, yes. The answer is, to answer your question, yes. We could do it and then put it in like this. Oops.
Okay.
I don't know why you'd do that, but I mean, you could. If that made more sense to you, you could do it like that. And you can use this stuff in different ways. Notice you can assign a variable to it, and why might you want to assign a variable to it? If there were, let's suppose that you had a program where you were testing the password all over the place. So maybe you needed the password check to get into the system, but maybe to get into certain pages on a website, you also needed a password check, all right? Or some kind of other thing to show if you've got authority or not. That's what they're talking about in here, all right? So you do some work with these regular expressions. Typically, with all this stuff, if you ever return -1, and this is what they show on page 555, -1 means the absence of something. All right, so if it's not there, it'll return -1. Regular expressions have some built-in methods, so there's a test method. Since it's a test method, it'll return true for the presence of something and false for the absence of something. And they mention this on the bottom of page 555. and the top of page 556. But to really start getting proficient in this stuff, this is what you end up writing. Now, you may or may not remember this, because if you look at this, you go, that's such a pain. You mean I actually have to write this and not screw it up? Remember, the recommendation today is you don't write this. You don't do regular expressions for email. You use the HTML5. Remember when you say type equal email? The only reason you might have to use that is if you needed to check for older browsers. All right? I mean, to me, that's just, if I'm going to do that, I'm going to find it online someplace, and I'm just going to paste it in. I'm not going to type that myself. But you'll notice if I go back out here to HTML5 patterns, and I go to emails, it says, do not use a pattern for emails. Instead, say type equal email, because that should handle everything for you. The idea is eventually, for most every type that's in here, they already have HTML 5.1. If you don't know that, all right, it's not been an accepted standard yet, but they're going to keep adding things to it. And then a certain day will come when they're going to say, we're not going to support browsers before IE8, for example. And they're just not going to. So if you've got an older browser, stuff might just stop working for you. All right. And again, that wouldn't be a problem for you, but it might be a problem because there are some people, even though browsers are free, they just don't upgrade them on a regular basis. All right. Now on the bottom of page 556, on the very bottom of the page, they talk about meta characters. All right. And you'll hear in future talks in other languages, you'll hear about something like metadata. Metadata is data about data. So meta characters are data about characters. What does that mean? Well, if you look at the chart that's on the top of page 557, now we're getting into not just writing expression patterns, all right, but writing more complex expression patterns. So dot, you don't use dot very much. It's a wild card. It means match everything or nothing. It matches anything. The backslash we already talked about. I told you about the caret for beginning of the string, $sign for end of the string. If you have something in parens, all right. If you have something in brackets, and we've looked at some of these already. So if I come through there, for instance, with that bracket one that you see in there, and I put in this, that means it includes any digit. Does that make sense? All right. But if I come through here and I say this, when it's inside of brackets like this, that caret doesn't mean starts with, that means excludes. So this would mean do not allow any numbers. Ranges, I already showed you that, and Brady'd asked that question about the dash, or the pipe sign. All right, so they go through all these. Matching any character is on 557. 558 is matching characters at the beginning or end of a string. So that would mean starts with HTTP or HTTPS. This would mean ends with com, ends with gov, etc. If we want to specify the quantity, I'll go for a couple more minutes and we'll take a break. If we jump up to 562, all right, another chart there. So if you are creating complex regular expressions, this is the kind of material you want to have handy. All right, so if you put something in with a question mark, it means it's optional. All right, with a plus sign, it means one or more. The asterisk means 0 or more. The n in here means exactly n times. You already saw that, right? With the digits, we put \d and then we put in curly braces 5. That means exactly 5 digits. All right? This means at least. So if we had to put 5 comma in there, that would have meant 5 or more digits. All right? If we put a number comma another number, So if we would have put 5 comma 9, that means either 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9. All right. So you work with these then on the example that's on, it's pretty long, 563, 564, 565, and 566. Then on the bottom of 566, the author talks about sub-expressions or sub-patterns. Again, that is something that's inside of something. They go through an example here of a telephone number. Now, just so you know, if you'd all please look up on the screen here, I want to make sure you get this. I think you do, but just to be sure, where is that? All right, I lost it. If we use phone numbers here, notice how different the US phone number is from the French phone number. So if you are going to allow for a phone number of any country there is, you're either going to have to break it down where you find the country first, or you're going to have one hell of an ugly pattern in here. Because it's going to have to be able to match everything. And they only give you French, English, and American. There are phone numbers all over the world. All right, let's take a break. We'll pick it up. It's 9:19. Let's come back at 9:30, and we'll pick it up on page 567 on the bottom of the page, talking about character classes. We'll finish this by 10. All right, if it's close to 10, we'll take another break, but we'll see, and then we'll do the test review. Okay.